If the doctor wants to see my crown jewels, I'm very proud to show my crown jewels. Just don't pinch them. Hi folks, it's Uranus, and in today's video I will be reacting to an episode of The Doctors called 27-Year-Old Man Hasn't Reached Puberty. This episode is about a 27-year-old called Brandon Westfall, and he still hasn't reached puberty yet at 27 because of pituitary issues. The pituitary is like the command center of pretty much all major hormones in your body, and if it's not working properly and you're left undiagnosed, you can end up at 27 with the voice, the body and the appearance of a child. The story holds a special place in my mind because I also did not go through puberty until I was almost 26 years old and on HRT. I was undiagnosed until I was 25. This is a picture of me when I was 20 years old. So we both had to deal with some of the same shit, and it had a big impact on our lives for sure. I watched this video for the first time in 2014, right when I started my HRT treatment, and I was crying my eyes out because I was recognizing myself so much in Brandon's story, and it helped me a lot to know that at least I wasn't the only one out there. Now, I don't have YouTube Premium, so let's hope we don't have any annoying ads from Pizza or Salad Idiot V-Shred. So let's get to it.
Our next topic is something we've all gone through. It's not always easy, talking about puberty. Now, puberty brings body changes. It can feel confusing, even humiliating. What could be worse than that, right? Well, how about never reaching puberty?
My name is Brandon. I'm 26 years old and I have not hit puberty yet. I haven't had any facial hair growth, very little arm hair, leg hair, very little penile growth, very little testicle growth. No change in my voice. It affects everything I do from the moment I wake up until I go to bed. I have no dating life at all. I have no sex drive at all. I like women, but I don't really have a drive to go and pursue them. Everyone's different from me. I don't feel like I'm at the maturity level I need to be. I don't look like a guy. I don't feel like it physically. I don't like to go out in public. I don't like to be seen. If I apply for a job, they think I'm younger and they don't want to hire me. They think I don't have the experience. I didn't think it was an issue until my early 20s because you always read online about late bloomers. You think eventually it's going to happen. You don't think that it's never going to happen. I don't have a job right now, so I have no way of getting medical help. At this point, I'm desperate for answers. I need to know what's wrong with me and how to fix it.
So first of all, I want to praise Brandon for making this video and putting himself out there like that. I know how he must have felt, and I know it must have been really difficult to have people filming you when you're talking about the most personal thing ever. It's crazy because when I watch this video, I see exactly myself. Tall, ginger, voice of a child, no body hair and zero confidence when he's talking. He said it affected everything he did, and for me it was the same. School was a horrible period for me and I was bullied like a motherfucker every single day. Once I started working, things were not better, you know. I was applying for a job looking like this, and when I was finally working, I had to give trainings to people and I had to do quality control over people's jobs, people's work, and it was really very difficult to have a little bit of respect at work looking like that. I didn't feel like a man at all. Dating? What is dating? You know, I had my first proper date when I was 28 years old and she asked me out. Luckily, I had friends, so I used to go out in public quite a lot, but I always had to get drunk to be able to relax and to enjoy myself. People would sometimes say mean things to me, and in the moment itself I wasn't reacting, but inside I was dying, you know. Anxiety was a real issue. I was always thinking about what other people were thinking about me. Once I was drunk, I wouldn't have that anymore and I could just enjoy myself. Somewhere I always knew I had a problem, but I never did anything about it because I was embarrassed. I had been bullied a lot at school and at work. And at home, I had no one who was willing to help me.
Brandon's situation called for a male reproductive specialist, so we sent him to board-certified urologist Dr. Aaron Spitz.
Hi, Brandon.
Hello.
I'm Dr. Aaron Spitz.
Oh, nice to meet you.
I had a chance to look at the chart you filled out for me.
Okay.
And I understand you're here to see me about concerns about your growth and sexual development. Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay. And you have difficulty with getting erections.
Yeah.
And you say that you've never reached a sexual climax.
I don't really have any desire for sex.
Now, one issue that may be a factor here, just looking at your notes,
Okay.
is your potential to be fertile.
Okay.
Is this something that you've thought about or that concerns you?
It does concern me. I would eventually like to have kids if possible.
Well, what I'd like to do is examine you.
Okay.
First, I'm just going to
Okay.
feel your neck, feel your glands here. Go ahead and swallow. I'm going to go ahead and listen to your heart and lungs now. I'm going to take a listen to your lungs.
No shit, his potential to be fertile concerns him. I also started my journey with a urologist, and luckily he was nice and comprehensive. At 25, I had never had a spontaneous erection in my life. I could climax, but I was shooting blanks. These days with the testosterone, I can't really have 3 days without busting a nut.
Due to anabolics, and I can't make more than 3 days without busting a nut.
But back then, I never had that drive, and I never had that feeling of need, you know. It's crazy because we almost had the same body type. We were tall, a bit overweight, we had gynecomastia. My urologist, on the other hand, only checked downstairs. I didn't have the full body check.
Okay, Brandon, I do agree with your assessment. Your genitals are underdeveloped, and it does appear that you have not completely gone through normal puberty changes.
Yes.
One immediate concern I have is your hormone balance, and it is highly likely that your testosterone is too low.
Okay.
So I'm going to have you get some blood tests that look at your testosterone level, as well as the controlling hormones that stimulate your testicles to grow.
Okay.
I'll follow up with you once the testing is complete, and hopefully be able to provide you with a diagnosis as well as a treatment plan.
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
So my genitals were also severely underdeveloped, and I even remember when it was really cold, my testicles would go back up and hide inside again. My urologist ordered a full blood panel and an echography of my small testicles. By controlling hormones, he means LH and FSH. These would normally be secreted by your pituitary gland, and they command your testicles to start producing testosterone and sperm. If something is wrong with the pituitary, well, nothing happens down there. So I don't know why the follow-up to this next video is on another YouTube account, but let's watch it.
Brandon joins us as well as Dr. Spitz. Thank you both for being here. And Brandon, first of all, let me just tell you, you are a brave man. Because I'm so glad, you're 27.
Yeah, be 27 next month.
And you've never had this looked into because you just kept thinking, someday it's going to happen. I'm going to go through puberty.
Yeah.
And this took courage. And I just want to applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Because the first step to figuring out what's going on is address.
I totally agree. It took a lot of courage to do this, and to be honest, I would not have been able to do it. I remember my first visit to the urologist, and I was really in a bad state. I had just been ditched because of my health issues, and the day of my appointment I learned I was going to lose my job, so I was really in a bad state. At the time, showing myself naked to anybody else was my biggest insecurity, and I was extremely embarrassed about my body. These days I really don't care anymore. If a doctor wants to see my crown jewels, I'm very proud to show my crown jewels. Just don't pinch them, you know. I have what it's called a varice. It's a bag of veins on one of my testicles, and I swear I once had an assistant pinch one of my testicles and it hurt for like 3 days. Now, more seriously, having a camera guy in the same room as the urologist on my very first appointment would have freaked me out completely.
Brandon, I'm curious, at what point in your life did you first think something's just not right with your body?
Probably mid-teens, 16, 17 years old. I noticed everyone else looks different, and my body's not developing at all.
We should clarify that not going through puberty doesn't mean that you can't grow tall. You're a big man. You're 6'3".
Yeah, 6'3".
You know,
So certainly some of the hormones were
physical
working.
development may not coincide with sexual development.
Correct.
And so you ran a number of tests to try to figure out what might be going on with Brandon.
Yeah, exactly. On the physical exam, what I observed is that Brandon has not gone through the typical signs of maturation. He's got a lack of body hair, he doesn't shave, his voice is not deepened, and his genitals are underdeveloped. Also, the fat distribution on the breasts and the hips is not what you would typically see in a mature male. And an interesting finding, too, is that his arm span is a little bit longer than its height, and normally your arm span is your height. And then finally, there was a very interesting sign, which was a lack of a sense of smell.
Yeah.
So then we got blood tests. We focused on FSH and LH. These are two hormones that are secreted by the pituitary gland, which sits right behind the eyeballs in the brain, and they surge during puberty. The FSH, or follicle-stimulating hormone, surges to stimulate the testicles to produce sperm, and the LH, or luteinizing hormone, surges to stimulate those testicles to produce testosterone, which then gives you all of those signs of puberty. Okay. The body hair, the deepening of the voice, the enlarging of the sex organs, muscle and bone strength, etc. So we ran those tests, and it turns out that your FSH and LH were so low they were undetectable.
Wow.
And your testosterone was so low, it was about 5% of what it normally should be.
I guess life at school for Brandon must have sucked just as much as it did for me. I didn't have any secondary sexual characteristics too. I shaved for the first time when I was 28 years old, and before that I didn't have any body hair either. I still had a ridiculously high-pitched voice. My fat distribution was really weird too, and I had gynecomastia just like Brandon, and I really had a pear-shaped body because of the hormonal imbalance in my body. I grew well into my 20s to 1.88 m. When I was like 18, I was one of the smallest kids in my class, but by the time I was 25, I grew to 1.88 m because my growth plates weren't fused yet. Although I have a huge arm span, like literally I have wings, I do not have Kallmann syndrome. I have done all of the genetic tests and they all came back negative. I have to admit, I'm a little bit surprised about Brandon's story about the lack of smell, because not going through puberty is something that you notice when you start being 15 or 16 or 17, like he's saying, but the lack of smell is something that you have from very young, you know, so I'm surprised that no one ever did something for him earlier regarding that aspect. I couldn't imagine not smelling, you know, because I just love to smell. I always have to smell everything. The two hormones they're talking about, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormones, were also completely undetectable in my blood results. And I had a total testosterone levels of 80 nanograms per deciliter, which is almost in the female range.
And the takeaway here is that, understandably, you know, every year you kept waiting. Yeah. You kept waiting. And Jim, the question I have for you is, when should someone worry?
In a boy, at age 14, if we're not seeing the beginning signs, yes, enlarging of the testicles, then we do something about it. In girls, if we don't see the first sign, which is breast development, by age 13, then we run the blood tests. And so normally, you know, we run the tests. Oftentimes they come back normal and we say, okay, you're just a late bloomer. It'll kick in the next couple of years. Sometimes we do find something. And, you know, like in you, your blood test suggested a diagnosis of Kallmann syndrome. And, you know, what that is, it's basically a genetic problem, whereas when your brain was developing in the womb, the neurons that eventually were going to cause those hormones to be stimulated didn't develop. Oh, okay. You know, and those hormones and those neurons are actually right next to your smell neurons too. So that little part of your brain just didn't develop.
And so, as a physician, you look at Brandon and say, okay, putting two and two together, lack of smell, yeah, and not going through puberty. Yeah. That leads you to think about Kallmann's.
Yeah, I mean, all the arrows really pointed towards that.
But to complete the diagnosis, Brandon also had
I kept waiting too, because I was completely embarrassed about myself and completely depressed. I had been bullied at school since I was 14 years old. I didn't have anyone to guide me. It's only once I got rejected by someone I really loved because of my health issues, and I lost my job and I hit rock bottom, that I picked up the phone and I started dialing some numbers. Somewhere, I always knew I had an issue, because at 16 or 17 I was still shooting blanks, but I was so deep down in my own shit that I never did anything about it until I was almost 26.
to complete the diagnosis, Brandon also had an MRI done, which is an important piece of this. And I know we're not going to talk about it until after the break, but MRI is very important here as well.
Well, the reason it's so important is because although Kallmann syndrome fits this pattern, what's much more common is a tumor of the pituitary gland throwing off hormones in men. And because that is much more common, we want to rule out a tumor of the pituitary, and so we do that with an MRI.
So Brandon did get his MRI. We're going to share those results with him as well as you when we come back.
Brandon must have really had a tough time growing up. Now, I've been reading a lot of the comments under these videos, and it would be very easy to judge Brandon's parents or whoever he was living with for not helping him, but we simply do not know the story behind this. It's very easy to judge a situation when you're not inside of that situation. In my case, my family was completely fucked up, but I do know one thing. Even if my parents did not help me and they weren't the greatest parents on some aspects, I know that they loved me and that they only wanted the best for me. School doesn't give a fuck about this. Look at how many kids today are still being bullied every single day. I can tell you right now, not having the proper hormones in his body for more than a decade affected him physically much more than is shown in the video. Aside from the obvious lack of sexual maturity, if he was like me, he suffered from random pains in his body, he suffered from muscle cramps, from osteoporosis. I would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night with pain in my arms or in my legs, and I learned later that it was because of the osteoporosis. He probably also had weak joints, weak teeth, no athletic performance whatsoever, and a really slow metabolism, and he would put fat on very quickly. This isn't even taking into consideration the mental aspect of not going through puberty. Imagine being stuck in the body of a child for more than a decade, and instead of helping you, people are mostly laughing at you. Alright, that's all for this video. I will go over the last part of Brandon's episode in my next video, where I will talk about his MRI results and the treatment that they gave him. I will compare it with the treatment that I had and with the results of my MRI scans. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the video, subscribe if you like the content, and thank you for watching. Uranus out.